I'm Laura from Garden Sanity, and it's early December here in my Zone 7 Southern New Jersey garden, and I did a fall cleanup in this side bed yesterday, and I didn't quite finish. I wanted to wait and show you how I cut down my perennials, but I did want to show you some of the cleanup first, and then we'll move on to the perennials, and I still have a couple annuals I got to pull out too. So let's get started. So first I want to start on this side, right at the edge of my property. We've got the Arborvitaes, which now are free of leaves. I'll tell you, all the wind seems to blow this direction. So these shrubs and trees really get a lot of leaves. So I cleaned up these Mugo pines yesterday, which were covered with leaves. They're basically leaf catchers in the fall season. You'll notice overnight though, however, a few more leaves fell. That's okay. And I also managed to clean up underneath this grass, which also seems to catch leaves onto the sidewalk over there. But what I did do was I left some leaves around the base of the little lime hydrangea. And no, it wasn't for lack of reaching in. It's that a lot of times leaves right around the base of a plant can help insulate the roots, insulate the base of the plant. So I don't really have to worry about that too much here in southern New Jersey. And we're supposed to have a more mild winter this year, but just in case, it's always nice to have an extra layer of leaves right around the base of a shrub. It may not look so nice, but as you can see, it's sort of blocked from the street. You can't see it behind the winter gem boxwood and this rock, so I can kind of get away with it without it looking too bad. Also, what looks gorgeous is this piglet grass. You may remember, and if you didn't, I'll put a picture up, of what this grass looked like earlier in the fall when it was just beautiful green and gold and just seemed to glow in the sunshine. Look at this. What a stunning color for the winter. It'll probably fade a bit more as the winter goes on. It'll bleach out maybe a little bit from the sun. But what a nice complement to the dried little lime hydrangeas right behind it. Very pretty. So this winter gem boxwood, because it's so exposed to the elements, especially the wind and the cold, although we haven't had that much cold so far, but it's mainly the wind, I guess, that it's starting to change the color. So it's not that bright green that you normally see. It's got a little bit of a rust. Again, I don't mind this. It'll turn much more rust in the winter. I'll put a picture up here so you can see. But again, why I like it is when it turns that color, look how it starts to match the little lime hydrangea. Isn't that pretty? And it goes with this grass over here too. Nature's awesome. I also have yet to remove all of these annual Ageratum. It's okay. I'm going to do it today, and I'll show you how easy it is to do. Obviously, you can see they are catching a bunch of leaves. The other thing you can see is a lot of the seeds are already starting to sprout again. I'm not too worried about this. I plant these every year. I plant annual Ageratum in this area. Seeds start to sprout, but it's never anything that overtakes the garden, so I'm not worried about it. But I'll be removing all of those. And here are 3 Kramer's Red Winter Heaths. I swear these plants are my pride and joy in the fall and winter. So these are also leaf collectors, and as you can see, even though I cleaned them, they've got a few more leaves falling. And now that I can see better, yesterday the sun was glaring so much yesterday, but I can see I've got a lot more to reach in. So they're starting to bloom. And if you see, right there is a beautiful bloom that's just starting. Over here there's some. All of the light green that you see are flower buds. These little shrubs will be covered with fuchsia magenta flowers starting in, well, they're starting now, obviously, it's early December. By January, they'll be covered. They will bloom through April, not exaggerating. I'm putting a link up to a video above, and I'll put it below in the description area so that you can learn about these shrubs. And you can actually see in those videos about how much they bloom, how gorgeous they are. There's another little bud right there, little flower bloom. So when you're cleaning these up, you have to be very careful. you've got leaves on the outside. But as you can see, when you go down deep, you've got some leaves here. You got to just be careful. And I literally did these one leaf at a time yesterday. And that's because all of these bright green flower buds, it's not that they're fragile, but you just don't want them to come off. You can't go willy-nilly and just pull the leaves out like you would normally on another shrub. So you got to be careful with these, and this can be painstakingly time-consuming. But knowing how gorgeous these are going to look makes it all worth it. There's the little line behind it with the leaf pile I told you about, just to give you a perspective. The Mugo pines are back there. And then, I always do this shrub after I do the Kramer's Red Winter Heath. Why? Because you can get into this shrub. It is so tough. This is a Japanese Helleri. I mean, look, this shrub is super tough. I get in there with my gloves and I just pull the leaves out like crazy, you know, just get in and get them out, and you can dig your hand all the way in there. Now, they aren't sharp. They're soft leaves. They don't have any thorns. But the reason I use gloves, and I use nitrile-coated gloves, which I've mentioned before in other videos, is because the nitrile coating actually helps you grip things. So it's great to use when you're doing fall cleanup. Now here's one of the Blue Star Kalimeris plants. Then you have a Blue Star Juniper, and then you have a few more Blue Star Kalimeris there. You also have one really sad one right there that you can hardly see, and that one, it didn't look good this year, and I don't know if it'll survive the winter. We'll have to see. So here we have Verbena Bonariensis, in which the flowers are all dried. I'm going to cut that back. And then we have Russian Sage Superba. It rained last night, so a lot of the leaves fell off. And I'm going to cut this back just a little bit, and I'll show you how I'll do each of these. So this beautiful evergreen Candytuft curves around all the way to the Lavender Phenomenal. And this is in the foundation bed here, right next to the house. So you can see, there's the knockout roses. So the only thing you really have to do with this in the fall is just get the leaves out of it. This will be covered with white flowers in the springtime. It's absolutely beautiful, especially as it blooms right after all the daffodils bloom. So it's very pretty. Sometimes they'll bloom at the same time, but my experience has been that they seem to bloom in succession. Another perennial that you may not have to cut back, depending on what garden zone you're in. This is totally Tangerine Geum. And the reason I say you may not have to is because in some climates, and I'm in Zone 7, Southern New Jersey, it'll be evergreen. And you do see it has some beautiful darker red color it's taken on with some of the cold nights we've had already. But there's still a lot of green. So I'm going to tidy this up a tiny bit, but I'm really not going to touch it too much. As the winter season goes on, it will get a little bit ragged, but right now it looks pretty, so I'm going to leave it. If you are in a zone where this isn't evergreen for you, then what you want to do is cut it back to the crown, and that'll be fine for the winter season. You'll notice in spring it'll start bouncing back with new growth right from the center, from where the crown is to the ground. This is Salvia, which I already cut back. You can see some of the dead stems that have already gone dormant for the winter. Those won't come back. No growth will come back from that. All growth on this Salvia, it's just a perennial blue Salvia, nothing fancy. It all comes from the base, and you can see because of some of the warm weather we've had, some new growth is already coming out. But no worries, it'll die off. Sometimes if we get snow cover, which we're doubtful to get this season, but if you get snow cover, it might stay green under the insulation of the snow. But it's no big deal if you start to see some new growth. It's not going to affect the plant at all. So here we have Sedum Autumn Fire, and it's no longer on fire. It's dried. What is on fire are the red berries of the orange rocket barberry, which still look pretty, although there's not as many of them, nor as many leaves. Birds are loving them. Now, some people will cut their sedum all the way back. I'm going to leave it up a little bit more. It is pretty for winter interest. It will start, you can already see the leaves and stems don't look so great. They look a little ragged. But I'll leave this up a little bit longer. Maybe in a few weeks I'll see how it looks. I might cut this back. But this is one of those plants that I'll want to leave as long as possible for winter interest. So now I'm across the yard in the other side bed. And in between these little bunny grasses, I planted Cat's Pajamas Catmint earlier this season in October. And if they were a lot larger, as I said before in the other side bed where I was to start the video, I would cut them down probably to about here, maybe slightly shorter. So these I'm going to cut down a little bit. This is my first year growing them, so I don't want to chop them down too much. Here's one of the Cat's Pajamas Catmints that I just had to zoom in on because look at how good this grew. I mean, these are going to look so beautiful next year. I can't wait. They always supposedly look better the second year. That's what I'm told. So already I'm excited about it. So this one has a lot of leaves around it. And I'll clean up some of those. I'm sure more leaves are going to fall. But I will leave some around the crown. Just in case we don't get any snow, it does provide some better insulation for the plant. Just a little helpful tip, but it's just a little bit of extra protection. Again, I don't know, this is in the front of the yard. Maybe you don't like any kind of leaves in your front yard. I'm okay with it because I know it's protecting the plants. Now behind these bunny grasses are two Veronica plants. And I'll put the names of them up on the screen because at the moment they escape me. One's blue and one's pink. Now you can see with this one, again, with the warmer weather we've had, there's definitely some new growth that's happening on it. But I'm going to be cutting this back. And I'll cut this back almost all the way to the bottom. Again, what I usually tend to do with perennials, in most cases, is I will cut them down low, but not all the way down to the bottom. I like to leave a little bit there. A, it helps me remember where the plant is, in case it does get covered by all kinds of things. And B, it's just a little bit better for the plant. Just gives it a little bit more protection that you're not cutting it all the way down to soil level. Now this is one of my many Geranium Rozannes that I have throughout my garden beds here in the front yard. And I'm showing you this one just because it looks so darn nice. Look at that red color. Gets a lot of autumn red color. And not all of them get that as much. I think maybe because this is larger, it's just more noticeable and it's so pretty. But you still see some green. You know, you still see some very fresh green. Again, because we've had some crazy warmer weather. We'll get a few nights where it's freezing and then it's warm. Like today it's going to be in the 60s. It's crazy. So again, I won't really cut this back right now because it looks so pretty. I will remove some leaves from it, but that's about it. One thing to tell you I already did was I took out all the leftover stems from all the blooms that were done. You can just pull those out gently with your hand. I wish I had an example, but I couldn't resist. So now I'm at the other end of this other side bed, as I call it. And this is the Little Henry Sweetspire with its beautiful red color that lingers from fall into December, as it is now early December. But what I do need to do is come in here. I cut back all the perennial Ageratum. But as you can see, it's now, it's catching so many leaves. So I'm going to come through here and just cut these all the way down to the ground. And I can do that with perennial Ageratum because it reseeds like crazy. In fact, all of these plants this year were reseeded from the 3 original plants I purchased. They say that it's a perennial Ageratum, but I found that the 3 original plants, I couldn't find them so much as I found 900 other plants this year all around the Little Henry Sweetspire. So again, not worried. Those I'll cut all the way down to the ground. Here is some Little Gold Star Black-Eyed Susan. And I have a couple of plants here, but most of them have gotten eaten by the rabbits. This one is still hanging in there. And I will try to protect it better this winter. And that'll be another video where I'm going to show you some of the things I'm going to do to protect some of these plants from the rabbits this year. Don't want to go through what I did last year.